Dear friends, first of all, my apology for speaking the language of imperialism. I thank you for this opportunity, and specifically the Belgrade Forum and my dearest friend, Zivadin Jovanovic. I should mention I have been reflecting on the history of this war, and what we are dealing with is a continuum. We can point to different dimensions of the war, which started in the 1980s and extended beyond 1999. But in fact, that war started on the 6th of April, 1941. And that is absolutely essential in our understanding of what happened. In fact, I'm contradicting my own analysis when I looked into what happened in the 1980s, the bankruptcy program. That's economic warfare. The bankruptcy program, the 600,000 workers who were dismissed from their work, and how the whole economy was the object of sabotage by what they call the Washington Consensus, which is World Bank and IMF. It was an act of economic warfare prior to 1999. And then you had January 1990, and that was another phase. And I think that the 1999 war was essentially to destabilize totally the nation state. But when I say that this started in 1941, I'm referring to the fact that, first of all, the April War preceded Operation Barbarossa. And the incidence of mortality what was the Kingdom of Yugoslavia at the time was it depends on different estimates, but the Western media will say it's 1.1 million, but the Nuremberg data will say more than 1.7 million. In other words, that was a war. That was not the first war. That was the beginning of the war. And then it evolved. But I should mention that the April War of 1941 and Operation Barbarossa was not the strict plan of Nazi Germany. The actors who supported Nazi Germany are the same actors who are currently fighting against Serbia and which were involved in the 1980-1999 war. And this is documented. I will mention, first of all, that Adolf Hitler's election campaign was funded by Wall Street and the Bank of England. In other words, the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds. But there was another element. Incidentally, this is on record. It happened, well, there were two meetings, and I think I might mention them more explicitly, that on January 4th, 1932, a meeting was held between British financier Montague Norman, governor of the Bank of England, Adolf Hitler, and Franz von Papen. Now, at this meeting, an agreement for the financing of the Nationalsozialistische Deutsche Arbeitspartei, namely the Nazi Party, was reached. And this is very important. This meeting was also attended by US policymakers, Wall Street, and the Dulles brothers. Now, the Dulles brothers are the architects of the CIA, okay? And then there was another meeting again with different, I won't go through it. It was on January 1933, and that is where Adolf Hitler's agenda and so on was ultimately accepted by his financiers, okay? I'm not suggesting that Adolf Hitler is a proxy, but there was a relationship between the powerful interests linked up to the US dollar. Of course, it was debt as well. And on the other hand, the fact that the Nazi Party was in fact funded by the financial establishment. And that's the same financial establishment which destroyed Yugoslavia. I insist on that. And that started in 1941, and it extended up, and it's ongoing. It's ongoing. I should mention that the present situation is very, very dangerous, but because I would say Trump the Terrible, nothing to do with Ivan the Terrible, okay? Trump the Terrible. Trump the Terrible is a criminal. And I've documented the fact that he actually is involved in money laundering, okay? And in fact, he had to pay a fine of $10 million, and that was a couple of months before he became candidate for the Republican Party. And he was accused, well, he wasn't accused. And it was an entity of the US Treasury, and it was $10 million compensation for money laundering in his Atlantic City casino. Okay, this is documented, but they didn't have any criminal charges against him. That's only one incident, but we're now faced with an individual who has the authority as commander-in-chief of the armed forces to use nuclear weapons against Iran. So we have to be in solidarity with all and that leads to global warfare. There's no doubt about it. But let me get back now to 1941. The April War was also it was also related, of course, to the subsequent Barbarossa, but it was a preamble, and there was tremendous resistance. And as I mentioned earlier, the mortality was the highest in relation to, in terms of percentage population. But let us look at the actors. There was, this may appear rather unusual. We know who is George W. Bush. We know the Bush Senior. Now, there's another Bush. He's called Prescott Bush. Now, Prescott Bush was, at the time, he was a banker, but he was also, and it was the Union Banking Corporation, and he was a partner with Tyson, which happened to be one of the major military entities of the Third Reich. And consequently, there you have an individual whose son and subsequently his grandson have a very prestigious opportunity of becoming, well, they were both presidents of the United States, and of course Bush Senior was also head of the CIA. Okay, now what happened in the case of Prescott Bush and the banking entity which he represented? I won't go into the details, but he was accused of trading with the enemy. Okay? It's on record. And then he became senator. Now, there's some sort of dirt there that the Bush family acceded to prominence. And of course, the Bush family was also involved in the war which was led against the people of Yugoslavia in the wake of, well, in the contemporary context. But there you are. You have the Bush family. Then you have also the Dulles brothers. One Dulles brother becomes Secretary of State. Another one is head of the CIA. And again, they were involved in the support to the Third Reich. And in turn, I should say that Yugoslavia was involved in combat and resistance, and that, of course, was also in its commitment also to the people of the Soviet Union at the time. But then there's another element which is very important. As I said, it wasn't only the Bush family which had links to Nazi Germany. Incidentally, the Bush family has links to Osama bin Laden, and the Bush family has links to the drug cartels, and so on and so forth. Okay? Now, they're not going to be arrested and sent to The Hague, right? Milosevic was sent to The Hague. And that is a crime against humanity. That system of justice is criminal. And I had the opportunity of meeting Milosevic in prison, and we exchanged essentially between the relationship between Al-Qaeda and the KLA. And I was subsequently invited to be one of his first witnesses, but that was at the time when they denied him the right of self-defense, which is a violation of law all over the world. He was denied the right of self-defense, and then I decided not to go, but I wrote a letter to the British Bar Association because they had appointed 2 lawyers, and then finally those 2 British lawyers, and I can't remember the names, that it was quite a number of years ago, but they were hired as amicus curiae, okay, which is a sort of a concept that they defend, but they deny the presence of the actual person who's being accused. And I think, well, this is a parenthesis, I think that what Serbia should envisage is, one, an investigation of that court, The Hague. It's a criminal entity. Do the investigation, and also an investigation of the assassination of Milosevic. That is absolutely fundamental. Now, while I'm at it, I notice, and that you can see how there's what they say in French, deux poids, deux mesures, different concepts for different people. As far as Hashim Tashi, I won't question his relationship with Madeleine Albright or Hillary Clinton, but he served a term of almost 20 years as Prime Minister and President of Kosovo. And when I started investigating the KLA and Hashim Tashi, and I was writing for the Monde Diplomatique at the time, I said he has a dossier with Interpol. Now, you don't dispute that. That's not a matter of opinion. He has a dossier with Interpol. And they said, no, we can't publish that. Okay, that was it. And that was my last article after 10 years with Le Monde Diplomatique. But there you are. That's another thing. Hashim Tashi should be repatriated and judged in Serbia, not in this fake court, yes, a tribunal located in Scheveningen. Thank you. Now, let me return to, this is the smoking gun of recent history, or the history of the 20th century. We must understand that Operation Barbarossa required petrol. With all the tanks and armored vehicles and the Air Force, and the Third Reich did not have any petrol. There was some oil in Romania, but this was not sufficient. And what happened is that Standard Oil of New Jersey came to the rescue of the Third Reich, and they provided gasoline right up until 1945. It was an illegal act. It was trading with the enemy, but it was not subject to any kind of action on the part of the government of Franklin D. Roosevelt. The Bush family was trading with the enemy, and well, they said, so what? But they had to close down. But Standard Oil of New Jersey, Exxon, provided gasoline to the Third Reich, and without that, there would never have been an Operation Barbarossa. And this would have been, in other words, Nazi Germany was doing the dirty work for them. It was doing the dirty work for them. That's the word of Dick Cheney. And Israel is doing the dirty work for the United States. That's another topic. But there we are.
Please finish.
Yes, I will finish. Okay. Well, yes, we will finish. But you give me about one or two more minutes, okay? What I'm saying here is that Operation Barbarossa would not have taken place without the support of the United States. And the course of history and the Second World War would have been totally different. And this is why, at this stage, we are in a continuum, and we have to understand that those who supported Adolf Hitler are still involved in waging this war. And again, with technologies which are much more advanced, and with leaders who are involved, many of those leaders have criminal records, incidentally. So thank you very much for your attention.